At the moment when every camera locked onto Trump, he suddenly snapped, shouting angrily and demanding that Obama leave the stage. Obama didn't even blink. Instead, he answered with a calm remark that instantly shifted the mood of the room and turned the audience against Trump. That night, the East Room of the White House was packed with senators, governors, diplomats, and reporters. The tension was heavy, almost tangible. Everyone sensed that something unforgettable was about to unfold. Washington had witnessed plenty of political spectacle before, but this felt different. Former President Barack Obama sat composed and steady, prepared to speak. Across from him, President Donald Trump sat rigid, surrounded by uneasy aides. Cameras were fixed, unmoving. Whenever Trump and Obama shared a space, people expected sparks. What no one expected was for the evening to spiral into one of the most shocking public confrontations ever seen within those historic walls. But before we go any further, make sure to hit that like button and stay with us. What comes next is worth every second. The event had been weeks in the making and was promoted as a call for unity. Invitations promised speeches about cooperation and healing. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. One White House staffer quietly joked that calling it a unity night was like seating fire and water at the same table and hoping for a handshake. At first, everything seemed polite. Dinner chatter stayed light, smiles were practiced, glasses clinked softly. Beneath the surface, reporters typed non-stop, eyes flicking between Trump and Obama, waiting. Then Obama rose. Some guests applauded immediately, others paused, glancing toward Trump. Obama began speaking in his familiar, measured cadence, talking about strong institutions, placing country above party, and leaders setting aside personal ego for the sake of national stability. His voice was calm, steady, and confident, echoing gently through the room. "History will not judge us by how loudly we speak," Obama said, scanning the audience, "but by whether we listened, by whether we chose courage over chaos, unity over division." Heads nodded. Some faces tightened. Everyone understood what he was doing. He wasn't just giving a speech. He was delivering a message, and the target was obvious. Trump shifted in his seat, tapping his fingers, eyes narrowing. Aides exchanged tense glances. Obama continued, his tone calm, but his words cutting. "This nation is larger than one man's pride. It is stronger than any single personality, and it will endure as long as we remember that." The atmosphere thickened. Veteran politicians leaned forward, waiting. Cameras zoomed closer. Then Trump shot to his feet. His chair scraped loudly against the marble floor, snapping the room into silence. He pointed directly at Obama and shouted, "Get out!" The words hit the room like a slap, raw and unscripted. Gasps spread instantly. Journalists lunged for their recorders. Senators froze mid-movement. A diplomat whispered in disbelief if that had really just happened. Obama didn't move. He held Trump's gaze, calm and unshaken. His silence cut through the chaos and commanded the room without a single word. Time seemed to slow. Trump's aides rushed toward him, whispering urgently. Staff tried to settle the crowd, but it was too late. The moment was already captured. The East Room, steeped in history, now crackled with razor-sharp tension. Unity night was gone. Something else had taken its place, and yet, the real moment was still ahead. Obama's response would transform that strained silence into something unforgettable. The room buzzed with murmurs. Reporters whispered. Aides shuffled nervously. Guests avoided one another's eyes. It wasn't just the shock of a sitting president yelling on live television. It was the sheer, unfiltered drama of it all. Obama remained steady, hands resting lightly on the podium. He leaned toward the microphone, his voice even, almost gentle. "Mr. President," he said, never breaking eye contact, "this room doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the American people." A crushing silence followed. A cameraman slowly lowered his camera, stunned. Obama continued, explaining that he had been invited just like everyone else to speak about unity. And if unity felt this threatening, Perhaps that discomfort said more about the state of the country than anything else he could say that night. The line sliced through the tension. Murmurs rippled across the room. One senator mouthed a silent, "Wow." Students recording on their phones whispered excitedly. Trump stiffened, lips pressed tight. He motioned for an aide to cut the microphone, but staff hesitated, unwilling to silence a former president on live television. Obama glanced briefly at the crowd, then back at Trump. He said calmly but firmly that Trump could ask him to leave, but he couldn't erase what needed to be heard. The East Room exploded with applause. Some guests rose to their feet. The sound nearly drowned out the frantic movements of aides. Obama raised a hand slightly, asking for calm. His composure only strengthened his message. He said this wasn't about either of them. It was about American families watching at home, tired of leaders treating politics like a personal feud. Families who cared about their children's safety, affordable healthcare, and whether their voices still mattered. Trump shifted angrily as the applause grew, even from guests who had seemed hesitant before. Obama leaned closer to the microphone again. He said history would not remember who shouted the loudest. It would remember who stood up when it mattered, who chose dignity over chaos, and who built something lasting instead of leaving bitterness behind. The room fell quiet, not out of fear, but respect. His words landed one by one, steady and heavy. Trump finally erupted again, accusing Obama of trying to embarrass him. Obama didn't flinch. He said he was there to remind everyone that the presidency was bigger than one man's pride, bigger than his own pride, bigger than Trump's, and the moment that truth was forgotten, everyone lost. The room vibrated with energy. Even political opponents recognized the force of his delivery. He hadn't yelled or insulted anyone. He had simply spoken, and the words carried immense weight. Cameras focused tightly on his calm expression. Online reactions exploded. Millions were already responding. The atmosphere shifted. Guests leaned forward. Even Trump's aides looked conflicted. Obama adjusted the microphone once more. He said quietly that shouting wasn't leadership. Leadership was measured by character. Another surge of applause swept through the room, stronger than before. Trump's face tightened. He tried to speak, but the applause drowned him out. Obama waited patiently, then delivered his closing thought. He said the country wouldn't heal by tearing each other apart. It would heal by remembering that everyone served something greater than themselves. His words echoed through the hall like a challenge. As powerful as that moment was, it wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The applause had barely faded when Trump lunged forward, gripping the table, face flushed, eyes darting between Obama and the cameras. Overshadowed in his own White House, he shouted that Obama thought he was some kind of saint, accusing him of walking back in like a savior, insisting that he was the president now. Gasps rippled across the room. Reporters scribbled furiously. Obama simply watched, calm and motionless, letting the outburst burn itself out. His stillness only magnified Trump's anger. Trump jabbed a finger, ranting about the past, calling Obama's years a failure, demanding again and again that he leave. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Someone whispered that this was madness. Cameras caught Trump's shaking hand, and beside him, Obama's unshaken calm. Obama finally spoke again, his voice low and controlled. He said that the White House did not belong to one man, but to the American people, and that they deserved better than what they were witnessing. The words only fueled Trump's anger. He spun toward the audience, arms spread wide, accusing Obama of trying to humiliate him on national television. He called it disgraceful. A senator hesitated, unsure whether to step in. Trump slammed his hand down and barked for security, demanding Obama be removed. But the Secret Service didn't move. Escorting a former president out on live television was unthinkable. The room could feel it. Trump was unraveling. His authority was cracking in real time. Obama leaned into the microphone again, calm and unwavering. He said he wasn't there to humiliate anyone. He was there because those who invited him believed the country deserved a real conversation about unity, dignity and leadership. And if that idea made Trump uncomfortable, then perhaps the real question wasn't about Obama at all. Maybe it was about why unity felt so threatening. A collective gasp swept the room, followed instantly by applause that drowned out Trump's protests. Trump shouted for Obama to sit down, his voice cracking. Obama straightened and waited calmly as Trump fumed, muttering to helpless aides. Cameras captured the contrast perfectly. A red-faced president losing control, and a steady former president speaking with restraint. "Respect isn't demanded," Obama said, his tone firm yet smooth. "It's earned, and right now the American people are watching closely to see who understands that." The applause grew louder, more confident, as if the room itself had made a decision. Trump shouted that it was his presidency, his event, and that he wouldn't be lectured. Obama tilted his head slightly, almost with pity. He replied that the presidency belonged to the people, not to the person occupying the office. And that was the first lesson every leader should learn. The audience stirred. This was no longer a dinner. It was a collision between two visions of leadership. Trump slammed the table again and repeated his demand for Obama to leave, but this time it sounded hollow, almost desperate. Then a voice broke through the tension. A governor called out, telling them to let him speak. Others joined in. The words spread quickly until half the room was chanting in unison, "Let him speak." The chant filled the East Room, drowning out Trump completely. He froze, stunned, as the room turned against him. Trump pounded his palm again, shouting that it was his house. But his words were swallowed by the crowd. Cameras captured everything: Trump's fury, the audience's defiance, and Obama's unshakable composure. Obama waited, patient and immovable. When the chanting finally faded, the silence that followed was heavy with expectation. He leaned toward the microphone and reminded everyone that they were standing in the people's house, not one man's stage and not one party's theater. This was the people's house, and the people deserved to be heard. The room erupted again in applause, steady and unified. Trump waved his arms wildly, shouting about fake news and claiming it would all be twisted. A journalist shouted back that nothing needed spinning because the cameras were live. Laughter cut through the room, sharper than any insult, and it landed hard. Obama seized the moment. He said no one had come there to watch two men shout each other down. They had come because they believed the country was capable of more. They believed Americans could sit at the same table, even in disagreement, and still find a path forward. He gestured toward Trump and reminded everyone that leadership was not about volume, but about vision. You could dominate a room with anger, or you could guide it with dignity. One choice endured far longer than the other. The words sank deep. Online, reactions exploded. Commentators joked that Obama had turned Trump's house into a classroom. Trump paced, fists clenched, muttering that it was all a setup and that everyone was against him. But the crowd no longer followed. Guests shook their heads and exchanged looks. A senator whispered that the president was unraveling. Obama didn't mock or strike back. He waited, then spoke again. Anger was easy, he said. Blame was easy. But when the anger faded, what would remain? What would history remember? Who shouted the loudest, or who rose above it? Even Trump fell silent. Cameras captured the moment. Obama composed. Trump cornered. The energy shifted again. People leaned forward, fully absorbed. This wasn't just politics anymore. It was patience versus rage. A reporter called out, asking Obama what he would say to those who believed unity was impossible under the current administration. Obama answered without hesitation. Unity, he said, was never impossible. It was just difficult, and difficult things were always worth fighting for. The room applauded as Trump's muttering vanished beneath the noise. The confrontation had become a defining moment. Obama let the silence breathe, then spoke again. The presidency, he said, was not a crown. It was a responsibility, and sometimes responsibility meant hearing things you didn't want to hear. Murmurs spread as the room leaned toward him. Trump slammed his fist and snapped that Obama was no longer president. Obama didn't flinch, and yet, he replied calmly, "Here I am." Because Americans still believe in decency, dialogue, and dignity. Trump's face darkened. He shouted that Obama was lecturing him and accused him of leaving the country broken. Obama shook his head. Strength, he said, wasn't measured by how hard you pounded the table. It was measured by whether you lifted people up or tore them down. And right now, the country was watching a president who confused intimidation with leadership. A gasp rippled through the room. Trump turned to the audience, accusing Obama of disrespecting the office. A voice shot back that respect had to be earned. Obama stepped closer to the microphone. He spoke about his years in the office, the burden, the sleepless nights, the loneliness. But he said you couldn't lead a nation if you were ruled by your temper. You couldn't unite a country if every criticism felt like a personal attack. Leadership required patience. It required humility. The East Room fell completely silent. Trump muttered into the microphone, asking if Obama thought he was perfect. Obama shook his head. He said he had made plenty of mistakes, but the true measure of a leader was whether he learned from them. And the measure of a nation wasn't the absence of disagreement, but its ability to rise above it. The words hung in the air. Trump abruptly stood, knocking his chair backward, declaring the event over and refusing to be humiliated. The Secret Service still didn't move. Obama leaned into the microphone one final time. With respect, he said, the people watching weren't judging him. They were judging Trump. And the question they would ask tomorrow wouldn't be what Obama said, but how Trump reacted. The room gasped. Trump froze, shaking with fury, finally silent. Reporters typed furiously. Hashtags surged. Obama calmly took a sip of water, then added that the presidency was temporary, but character was permanent. The applause exploded. People rose to their feet. Trump clenched his fist, searching for control, but it was gone. Obama had taken the room with quiet authority. The East Room had become his classroom, and outside its walls, the nation was reacting. Obama straightened, leaned forward, and delivered the line that would leave America stunned. He said Trump could tell him to leave, but history would remember who spoke the truth and who tried to silence it. The words landed, followed by silence. Trump's jaw tightened. His body went rigid. There was no response. That silence spoke louder than any shout. Then the room erupted. Applause thundered. Guests surged to their feet, pounding tables and cheering, while students stood with phones raised, fists in the air, recording a moment they knew would be remembered. A senator leaned in and whispered that the line would be quoted for the next 50 years. Trump tried to interrupt, waving his hands and shouting that it was all fake, but the room had already moved past him. The applause sealed the moment. Obama had reframed the night into a contrast between dignity and rage, reason and reaction. When the noise softened, Obama spoke again, gently cutting through it. He said the country deserved more than shouting matches. It deserved leaders who could disagree without trying to erase one another. America, he reminded them, wasn't about one man, one party, or one election. It was about the people, and the people were watching. Heads turned toward the cameras, everyone suddenly aware that millions were tuned in. Aides clustered in tight knots. Secret Service agents stood motionless. Trump barked orders, but no one responded. Applause rose and fell in rolling waves. A governor later said you could feel the ground shift, that everyone in the room knew they were witnessing history. Trump slammed his fist again and called it a disgrace, his voice cracking, but the anger no longer carried weight. Obama looked straight into the cameras and delivered a line that would echo everywhere. He urged viewers not to let anger be louder than hope, not to let fear drown out their voices, and never to believe that decency was weakness. That was the moment, the line destined for headlines and replays. The crowd surged to its feet, applause firing like cannon blasts. It felt like a reckoning. Even skeptics were visibly shaken. Obama stepped back, hands folded, composed, letting the words do the work. Trump's fury flared briefly, then faded. Obama's message etched itself into memory. Journalists scribbled furiously. One wrote that this wasn't a speech, it was a verdict. Trump muttered, but no one paid attention. Obama stepped forward once more and delivered a final thought. He said he would leave when he was finished speaking, and when history looked back, it wouldn't ask who shouted the loudest. It would ask who stood with dignity. The applause was overwhelming. Beyond the walls of the White House, a media storm unlike anything Washington had seen was already erupting. As Obama exited, the confrontation spilled into the world. Live feeds rolled. News banners flashed about Trump shouting for Obama to get out, and Obama's response stunning the room. Cable networks split their coverage. Panels argued. Clips replayed Obama's calm delivery again and again. Social media exploded with phrases pulled directly from the moment. Short videos raced across platforms, gaining millions of views within hours. Newsrooms scrambled for analysis. One commentator said Obama hadn't just won the room, he had won the narrative. Inside the White House, aides scrambled. Someone muttered that they had lost the night. Trump paced, furious, repeating claims of betrayal and fakery. Obama, by contrast, simply waved, shook hands, and left. His brief remark that he had said what he needed to say, and that the rest was up to the American people, carried almost as much weight as the speech itself. By midnight, comedians were preparing monologues. Late-night shows spliced together, Trump shouting, and Obama calmly sipping water. Writers joked it was the first time viewers wished a political speech would go longer. For many Americans, it felt raw and real, a moment that stripped power down to character. In Washington, the battle continued. Trump and his allies tried to reclaim control of the story. Emergency meetings were held, tweets were drafted and sent, accusing Obama of disrespect and the media of distortion. Networks took sides. Some attacked Obama. Others framed the moment as statesmanship. Still, the narrative leaned his way. His words were simple and resonant. Trump's defense remained the same. Strategists worried aloud that calm dignity couldn't be outspun. Fundraising emails went out with slogans pulled from the speech. Shirts appeared with quotes printed across them. Obama stayed silent, letting the moment grow on its own. Analysts called it a masterclass in restraint. Trump couldn't let it go. At rallies, he ranted about disrespect, but the clips felt hollow next to Obama's composure. Talk radio debated. Late-night hosts fanned the flames. Memes spread everywhere. The more Trump fought, the sharper the contrast became. Historians began to suggest that Obama may have defined his post-presidency legacy with a single sentence. The consequences spread. Polls showed voters shifting, questioning Trump's temperament. Grassroots campaigns launched around the idea of dignity first. Civil rights leaders tied Obama's words to broader struggles for justice. Attempts to reframe the moment fell flat. International observers praised Obama's restraint. Families argued at dinner tables. Offices debated. Sermons quoted the exchange. Trump kept trying to reclaim the spotlight, raising his voice, but the memory of the East Room lingered. His loudness came to symbolize disorder. Obama's calm came to represent strength. By allowing the moment to unfold, Obama's quiet presence sharpened the contrast even further. In the end, the story wasn't about one man defeating another. It became a lesson. True power doesn't always shout. Respect is earned through patience, calm, and courage. It became a tale of two men facing the same moment. One yelled, the other remained composed. The country was left to reflect on what real leadership looks like. What do you think about what happened? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to Celebrity Stories. We're exploring the deeper moments others avoid, and this is only the beginning. God bless you, and God bless America.